You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Barbell Logic podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Sims, the CXO of Barbell Logic, as well as a strength and nutrition coach.
And I'm Andrew Jackson, Chief Operating Officer and Product Manager for Turnkey Coach, as well as a strength and nutrition coach at Barbell Logic Online Coaching.
And we just had a great night of sleep. I thought it would be cool to start with some sleep bragging and heart rate bragging.
Okay. How'd you do?
Definitely close it in on 3 hours of deep sleep. Which is pretty rad. That seems to be like a regular now. I think it's because the air is so cool. It's been wonderful. And I had, I think, a low heart rate PR, which I think you did too, yesterday for the whole night. And I sleep for a long time. It's like 8 to 9 hours. So my average was 41 BPM.
Wow.
Yeah, for average, which I think is pretty cool. I think the lowest it got down to during the night was 34. So I was
wonder
resting.
what the minimum heart rate is that you can still function.
Yeah.
Like, don't you get like alarms warning you that you're about to die or something?
Yeah, the Apple Watch, there's a low heart rate notification, anything under 40.
Yeah.
I have all that silenced when I'm asleep, but I had 20 notifications that were silenced for my heart rate being scary low.
And that's like based on when somebody should call the ambulance, or can you adjust that setting? Or is that just
I think, I don't know. I haven't tried to.
Humans shouldn't be going below 40.
I kind of feel proud of it. So, but I know that's an issue. Like if you actually have a heart problem, or it could be like an indication of having a heart problem, but it's called like an athlete heart rate, which I don't know if I would really call myself an athlete, but athletes have heart rates like that.
Yeah. I mean, you're getting down to a beat every other second.
At the lowest.
2 seconds a beat.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That's cool. Nice job, Hart. Yours was low.
Low was 41.
Yeah.
So my average was 46.
44? That was 44.
Which is the lowest I've seen it in a few years. Normally, I'm in the kind of low 50s, but I recently started supplementing with magnesium, about 400 milligrams just before bed, or, an hour or so before bed.
Same.
And I've taken ZMA way back in the day where it was super popular, giving me funky dreams for a while. But I just kind of randomly stumbled across an old bottle of magnesium and started taking it and noticed that I slept significantly better.
Tell the story of the first day you took it recently.
I don't even remember. I just took it. And
it wasn't bedtime. You took it in the middle of the day.
Yeah, that's right. I took it in the middle of the day. I don't even remember why I thought it was a good idea to take it. I think I'd probably just brainwashed by Instagram at this point, because I saw something pop up about magnesium, and then I saw a bottle of magnesium and I was like, okay. And the label said 400 milligrams was what the Instagram thing the guy was talking about, like taking 400 milligrams of magnesium. I was like, okay, let's give it a try. And then I just thought I was tired. The rest of the day, I was just falling asleep.
Hilarious timing, because we were entertaining my sister and her husband. They had just flown into town, and I was like, cool, let's have this fun day. And poor you were
all
just
I
like
wanted to do was take a nap.
Yawning. We went shopping, and you finally found a couch in Anthropology to lay down on.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I basically took a nap at the store.
Yes. I have a photo. I'll have to send that to Paige.
But then I was
great
like,
when it's actually bedtime.
Yeah, maybe I'll give this a try closer to bedtime. The thing that I've noticed is I'm getting about 15 minutes more per deep sleep. I use Auto Sleep app. I was actually looking back at my history. I'm coming up on like 3 years of using that app next May.
Yeah.
It's wild. So I'm at 2.5 years.
Matt was using it, and then we all started using it.
Yeah. I just like tracking the trends. And in this example, I can see that I'm getting about 15 minutes on average more deep sleep, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a big difference when on average I was getting somewhere between an hour to an hour and a half. And now I'm getting somewhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours of deep sleep, which I would say the thing that I've noticed is I feel most refreshed and like ready for the day, not as much based on how many total hours I get. It's more how many hours of deep sleep I get.
For sure.
So I could be in bed for 9 hours. If I only get 15, 30 minutes of deep sleep, I still wake up not feeling good.
That's like the deep REM cycles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm getting more deep sleep. And a lot of that I think is coming from, at least my experience subjectively, is that when I wake up in the middle of the night, I feel a little bit more drowsy. And so I fall asleep faster, which that's been historically one of the problems I'm having is waking up, whether it's to go to the bathroom or some noise or whatever. And then it's just that opportunity for my brain to just start spinning.
Totally.
And since I started taking the magnesium, that's just not happening.
That's really nice.
Zonk back to sleep. What's interesting is I just recently started doing that. And then Peter Attia released a podcast on Monday, an AMA on magnesium, and started talking about how much magnesium he's taking.
A 25-minute intro that's preceding like probably a 3-hour podcast about magnesium.
Yeah. The full episode's behind the paywall, which I have not done yet. But yeah, so magnesium's a thing. I typically don't really get excited about supplements. Creatine's about the only thing that has, in my opinion, stood the test of time. And I've done fish oil and vitamin D and
with the magnesium supplement, you take calcium and vitamin D.
It does come with that. Yeah. And who knows, maybe it's the mixture of all of it that works.
Yeah.
But yeah, so far liking it.
Big fan.
And then the lifts, I seem to be performing a little bit better, but probably because of the sleep.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
I think magnesium supports bone.
Yes. I mean, it's definitely got a lot of benefits beyond just sleep. But yeah, anyways. Sleep bragging.
Anyway,
so
sleep's great.
I think I got 2 hours of deep sleep, over 8 hours of sleep, and a low heart rate for the last 2 years.
I'm going to actually see what I got because I think it was pretty awesome. 2 hours and 53 minutes of deep sleep last night.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Definitely trending. Ooh, one night I got 2 hours and 49. Ooh, 3 hours and 21.
When was that?
A Saturday night. That's my Saturday night for you folks. Yeah, it just feels good. It's kind of like how when you get a hold on your nutrition.
Yeah.
And you realize that you don't have to feel like a turd sandwich. It's the same thing with sleeping. You're like, once you know what it feels like to sleep well, I think I become like really sensitive to what it feels like when I don't sleep well.
Right. You just notice how much better you feel.
Yeah. Way less emotionally volatile.
Totally. Yeah. Life just seems much less stressful.
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah. And this one comes up a lot with clients. It's just like, hey, how's it going? Oh, man, I'm not sleeping. And
yeah, or it takes 3 or 4 questions to figure out that they're not sleeping. And you hear a list of maladies that as you pull the thread and eventually get back to they're only sleeping 4 or 6 hours a night and they're falling asleep by having 2 or 3 beers, a glass of whiskey.
Yeah.
And that's how they help themselves get to sleep, which I would say the reason that in addition to the magnesium, the other major difference maker for me is not drinking.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. Same here.
My heart rate will be, even with just one drink, my heart rate will be 2 to 3 beats higher. And then if I've had a couple 2-3 drinks, then I'm probably going to be in the mid to upper 50s. The more dense the alcohol, like a shot of whiskey will really pop me up, sometimes into the 60s. I've had a couple glasses of whiskey and then sugar. Like it's because a lot of times the drinks will come with that.
It's like it's a poison.
Yeah. Yeah. No alcohol and then not eating and drinking close to sleep.
Yeah. I find I need a way to give my brain something else to, I guess, focus on. That's not going to be all the things that I could have, should have, need to do. Which for me is, I just read easy to read books on my Kindle.
About murdering other people?
I don't read them. It's not like a how-to manual or anything. Or
I mean, you probably pick up a pretty good number of tips and tricks, though.
I could be a resource. But here's the thing. You only hear about the people who got caught.
That's true. Mm-hmm. That's true.
And I don't read like true crime. I'd read like detective.
But you also hear about how they didn't get caught for like 10 or 15 years. Mm-hmm. And then they got caught because of a parking ticket or something, right?
Or DNA. It's a big one now. Yeah.
So you probably know the best practices and the thing that trips everybody up.
I could come in handy.
So that's how you put yourself to sleep.
Yeah, because it's, some books are just not good books and I don't care very much. So it's okay if I just conk out the next night I read it. And I'm just like, I don't really remember what happened last night, but I don't really care because it's fine. It's usually a series, and in a lot of these series, they kind of reintroduce a lot of people multiple times. So it's just like not anything that I'm super invested in that prevents me from thinking about base camp and thinking about, problems that I'm trying to solve, which there's a place for that, which I just like that to be at other times. And I'm not trying to hit my deep sleep numbers.
I started reading before bedtime Plutarch's Life of Alexander the Great upon recommendation from Carl Schute.
Is that like insta sleep?
It's pretty quick to sleep. Yeah. It's not written for the modern audience, as you might imagine. This book is something, thousands of years old, but kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I imagine what it must be like as somebody who's trying to write a book about a very famous and powerful person during an age where there was no way of recording events other than telling somebody or writing it down on paper. And I just think about how hard it is to understand the truth of what's actually happening in an era where we have almost everything on video and audio in real time.
Yeah.
And these are these are written
They're
stories.
human accounts. And it's like 5 people can watch the same thing and you'll get 5 different versions of the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you'll read these, paragraphs, which is also a translation.
Right.
And probably multiple translations. So you have lots of context.
Sounds like you're talking about the Bible.
It kind of reads a bit like it, actually. It's sort of almost borderline run-on sentences of he said, she said, he did, this happened. And it, you're reading these stories that are talking about names and places that I have no idea. I mean, I would have to do so much research on one sentence just to understand what the heck they're talking about. But you pick up, the general idea of what's going on. But it's just sort of it's just interesting to imagine because it's just a dude being a guy that happens to run the most powerful country in the world at the time.
Yeah.
And some of the drama is like, they're drinking, they're having a party, they're in the cups, quote unquote, and basically just talking smack to each other and getting mad at each other and being insulted. And then they call up their buddy and have him go talk to the other guy. I don't know. It's almost like, I don't know. This is probably way oversimplification and very uneducated of me to say, but I feel like I'm watching an episode of the Kardashians. Like Alexander the Kardashian. Except
oh my god,
they're invading, sacking towns and taking over their wives.
Not
and
just
stuff.
Talking trash on Instagram.
Yeah,
modern day warfare.
But it's a lot of ego and delusions of grandeur. They've got people casting spells and chants and running around naked to gods, and I don't know. It's pretty wild. But
yeah.
Good bedtime
good
material.
Dudes being dudes fodder there. Every time, like, I remember watching a Viking movie. I can't remember what it was called. And it was just like something that happens all the time, apparently, when you were living in the Viking era is people come in and kill your family.
Yeah.
And then the survivor is just completely overrun with revenge. And that's all that matters. And it's so interesting that life means so little and yet so much back then. And I'm sure that was the tale of time for a long time until light bulbs came around, like in very modern history.
Right.
It's kind of tying into what we're talking about now. It's just like things are nice right now. Like life isn't
Relatively
too
speaking.
hard.
Right.
There are hard things going on in the world for sure. But for many of us, like, I broke my coffee cup this morning and I had a meltdown. Like, life is good. And yet we still have this drive to do difficult things because we know we grow from that. And that's been a resounding theme in why we like lifting, what we get out of it, how we have to endure that discomfort to grow. And we've been talking about it lately on this 6-month promotion we're running. It's just like, we're not really afraid of hard things. We actually really like them. We're afraid that we're putting our time in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And I think especially when you're older and you get more clear on what's important to you, time is so important to you. And so you want to know, if I'm going to invest my time and make a bunch of trade-offs into this hard thing, am I going to get what I want out of it? And sometimes you have no idea where you're going to get out of it until you have done it for a certain period of time.
Yeah, especially when you're trying to change your body. That takes months of consistent hard work. And most of the fitness industry is selling something that's hard today, and it feels like you're doing something hard in the moment. You're getting hot and sweaty. And there's some benefits to that, to exercising. Doing a spin class feels hard, but it isn't the same as strength training for 3, 6 months, a year, 10 years, where you are fundamentally changing your bone structure, your muscle structure, you're creating new tissues, your ligaments are changing muscles, which is a major organ in your body, affects your metabolism.
Yeah.
And changes the nutrition needs that you have. These are massive changes, both physiologically, but then also the habits that are required to sustain that change over a long time requires a lot of energy and intention, which, to your point, if you value your time a lot, is a risk to invest that much time and energy into something that you're not really sure how to do. And I think that's the thing that we can provide most for our clients, is that experience and expertise to know how to move somebody from A to B efficiently and effectively without them having to spend any time or energy worrying. And you don't have time to hesitate when you're trying to get significantly stronger.
And you don't have time to become a coach with 15 years of experience before you start lifting.
Right. You could spend the next 15, 20 years trying to figure out how to become a good lifter.
And part of that is lifting.
Part of that will be lifting.
Yeah.
But you're probably going to make a ton of mistakes along the way. You're going to go down rabbit holes that you don't need to go down, and you're going to have setbacks, and you'll encounter situations that you're not sure how to get around. And all of that makes it hard to establish the habit and get the results. That can definitely happen with guidance, and that's why I still value coaching in other aspects of my life, because not getting coaching on something where you need to be able to go all in, how you apply yourself, is going to waste a lot of time and energy.
Yeah.
Not just in the fact that you might be pointed in the wrong direction, but there's going to be some part of you that's not able to go all in because you're evaluating whether it's working or not and wondering whether it's working.
Course frequently. And like you said, you need a lot of time doing something like a nutritional change. It takes weeks, months, years to change your body composition, depending on how much you want to change it. It doesn't take the day of eating changes.
Right.
You have to have actions that day that create basically a new homeostasis. And it takes a really long time to stabilize and then make changes.
Right.
And you could, I think that's where like yo-yoing comes from, is it's like, I'm going to do this really hard. And then like, oh, that has created a whole new kind of ecosystem that's making me do this. And so instead of kind of investing in consistency in the right direction, you end up trying to chase like 10 different rabbits.
Yeah. And with lifting specifically, you will get better results from lifting with a high motivation level. They've actually been able to show and demonstrate that if you are lifting with intention and high motivation, you're going to be able to recruit more motor units and get more mechanical tension and perform better. And if you're going into the lift or the program, this is also true from a programming results perspective. Research done on periodization basically proves that the value of periodization is just that the client or the lifter is bought into whatever it is that they're doing and going all in to the program. So if the lifter, or if you aren't bought into what you're doing 100%, you're not going to get as good a result.
And so when you are the coach and you don't really have trust in your coach, how's that going to go?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not good, or not as good.
Yeah. I've learned to really appreciate the value of having someone who I can trust to help me get to where I want to be sooner.
Yeah.
I could totally do this for myself. I have enough knowledge to kind of figure it out. But I also know there are people who are smarter than I am.
Yeah.
They've coached more people than I have.
Right.
Like maybe they've coached more women in their late 30s than I have. Better than me. And the emotional aspect of this is huge, because I think like as I'm getting closer to 40, I just know what's coming. I know my body is going to turn into just really a not cool thing. Like in the sense of as an aging female, as I understand it, it gets harder and harder to lose fat. You have to eat more protein and your fat just goes to your belly. Like, that's too bad. Like, I'm really curious about it. I don't really know what to do about it, but I do believe that if I can pack on as much muscle as I can and keep maintaining my ability to like have some kind of barrier on how much fat I gain, that'll make me, when I'm 60, more in control and just kind of, you know, maybe more accepting of the current state of whatever my body is going to look like at that time. So it just feels like that amount of time is compressed. I'm not 28 anymore. It's not like I can, or actually, I think I can actually make pretty good body composition changes now. But I just want to know that I'm continuing down that path because I don't want to lose control as I get older. I want to take the time to build those habits and build muscle. And having trained for 10, 15 years, there's only so much more muscle I can build.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a new lifter anymore. You're not a new lifter. We can build some muscle, but
probably not much.
And so
Unless
how do I maintain my muscle?
Significant hormonal
Right. Yeah.
changes that I haven't done.
So yeah, it feels compressed in that I don't want to waste my time.
Right.
Yeah. And I will accept the whatever are going back to like the idea of the hard things. It's like, what difficult things do I need to do now to make sure I'm on the path to greatness?
The only consistent thing that I've seen is that the valuable things are hard to do.
Yeah.
There's nothing that I do that's easy that adds value. Matt's talked about this 100 times, but often the way that I know whether to do something is whether or not it's hard. That's how I got started in the first place. I can remember vividly, it was 1998 down in the football weight room. And the first time that I did a real barbell, full range of motion back squat. And I got done and I was like, that was hard. I need to do more of that.
Oh, that's cool. You went right to it.
Yeah. I just knew, like, I'd never experienced something like that felt so hard on my entire body. And I knew that was good. Same thing with wrestling, same thing with rowing. I just knew these things were going to be difficult. And for whatever reason, that's what I'm wired to pursue.
Yeah. I find that that's an easy thing for me to go towards when it's a physical endeavor. I have a more difficult time when it's like a intellectual endeavor or something else where it's like work related, I'll say, or personal related. It's not like it's hard, it's going to be great. It's more like, oh man, that is not appealing. But physical endeavors, I'm like, yes, I want to do that.
I was just listening to Robert Greene talking about a book that he recommends that I haven't finished yet, or I haven't even started.
So both are true.
So here I am again regurgitating Instagram stuff, but it was an interview with Robert Greene, and he was talking about how the thesis of this book is that there are 5 different intelligences or aptitudes, if you will. Most of the time we think of it as intellectual aptitude, but there's physical, emotional, I can't remember what the others were, but that different people are drawn to different aptitudes. And often we lose sight of that in life. And the takeaway from this quote, and I think from this book, is that most people have 1 or 2 of these 5 aptitudes, and that you tend to feel drawn to those. Or if you think back to early in your life, you just notice that there are certain things that you're just drawn to. So he was suggesting to kind of think back to that and really lean into those things that you're really drawn into. So, and both of us, I would say, are drawn to physical activity and exerting ourselves physically, expressing ourselves physically. Big
expression.
I think that might be part of why you felt that way as well.
Yeah. I was thinking about this, I think it was just last night, how I don't really have a good ability to look back and appreciate things that I've done. I can kind of see that in like my physical endeavor, but I am really terrible at like looking back and looking at what I've done in like any other arena of my life. It's really weird. It's like a weird dark spot, but I'm really good at thinking about things I could do better and should do better. And so I tend to be more focused on what should be in the future. So like things that I should be better at, could be better at work-wise, relationship-wise, all that. But I never look back and be like, you know what, I did this really well. I've accumulated all this knowledge. I never am able to do that. But in like the physical sense, I'm a lot more able to be present. I think I used to get a little caught up more on like what I could do in the future. And I still see that vision, but I'm much better able to like look back at what I've done physically and be proud of that and be in the moment while I'm in a workout and being like, this is the shit. But while I'm working on a project and while I'm thinking about a project, I'm never in that space. And I'm trying to figure out how to get more into that space because my physical growth has come from thousands of workouts. And just like professionally, it's come from thousands of mistakes, thousands of conversations, thousands of inputs. And I don't know, I think I'm trying to learn from one and put it into the other in a useful way.
Sounds like your tolerance for mistakes in one arena is much lower than in other. I mean, you've made a million mistakes lifting, and
for sure.
Yet don't seem to have, I mean, there's a moment of feeling frustrated or disappointed if you don't make the lift or if you're not getting the results that you want or if you have a injury setback, but that doesn't seem to have the emotional baggage as the equivalent in the work environment.
And maybe it's because, and this is turning into a fun therapy session, like when I'm working for the team and for my clients, like it's them on the line. My training is just me on the line, which is really important to me. Like I really don't want to waste my time and it's important to me, but it's like now like in work and relationships, it's like other people have faith in me and I need to be perfect, which is, unreachable.
Interesting.
Are you able to make parallels like that with physical and intellectual and professional endeavors?
They feel pretty comparable to me. I probably have a oversimplified version of thinking of it as winning and losing, and I just hate losing. I like to feel like I'm winning, and
which is great for conversations with another person.
I definitely get frustrated if the outcome of whatever it is that I'm working on, whether it's a conversation or a project, isn't going the way that I thought it or expected it to. But maybe that's the same as lifting. There's a parallel where I talk a lot about train curious and be careful about setting expectations going into a training session and being present with where you're at today. There's probably an opportunity to apply that to other scenarios that I don't. I expect conversations to go a certain way or projects to go a certain way. And when they don't, then I get frustrated and stuck. Yeah. And then my emotional reaction to that is really unproductive because I stop communicating well and I'm just in the emotional frustration of the moment.
And like when that comes up in training, you're just like, well, I'll just work harder. I'll work differently.
Or I'll just allow myself to not have a good day.
Yeah, totally. You're like, okay, I'll just shake that one off.
I guess it's not there today.
Yeah.
Try again tomorrow. And I don't like get mad at myself. I mean, sometimes
maybe
I do.
You used to.
Sometimes. Yeah, and definitely I used to. The other piece that I heard you talking about that it might be relevant to other aspects of life is that you don't reflect on all the things that you've done in the past as previous accomplishments, but you have gratitude for who you are and what you are today.
Yeah, that's true.
And from that space, you're trying to move forward.
Yeah.
Build the next thing.
Yeah.
But gratitude for what you are now, which I believe is an accumulation of the habits and choices that you've made for the last 38 years, is a different way of saying the same thing without having to go back and point out individual
accomplishments and failures. Yeah. I guess it's easier to map out like, I trained for this, I accomplished this, I worked out this many times, and it's not as precise and able to be articulated in other endeavors, but it still happens. Yeah, it's been interesting. And it's just really cool to look back at the hard things that you've done in lifting.
Yeah. The other aspect of it that I think I try to work on is also taking ownership for whatever it is that's happening right now that I'm not happy with is also an accumulation of choices and behaviors, patterns up until this point, and to move forward in a way that addresses whatever it is that I'm not happy with is going to require me to change something, which is by definition hard.
Yeah.
And so I think the crux of that is figuring out how to stop complaining and just being stuck with whatever that thing is and focusing on or trying to figure out what it is that's holding me back. Who can I work with? I mean, this is where the coach comes back in, whether it's a professional coach, which I've had, a therapy coach, whatever you want to call it, different aspects of my life. I've needed somebody's help to break through patterns that are holding me back from what my goals are.
Yeah, that's really valuable.
It's really hard to know or to be objective about what patterns or decisions you're even making.
True.
Because sometimes you just have a blind spot. Blind spots are it's cliche, but they're real and you just don't see it until somebody's like, do you realize you're doing this?
I and I was listening to this conversation. Huberman was interviewing this author, and I think it's rather prolific writer, Adam Grant, about blind spots and opportunities. And it made me like, should I ask the team what my blind spots are? Am I vulnerable enough and open enough to ask for that? Because I really, having seen other people's blind spots, like, I don't want to be like inflicting my blind spots on other people. But it's like you have to be really vulnerable, and then you have to spend months making changes around that awareness.
Yeah, my experience with that in previous lives where they were called 360 evaluations, where you get feedback from your peers, your boss, and your employees, your direct reports, and sometimes even second level direct reports. And it all just comes at you in this giant wave of feedback. Fortunately, in my case, I was working with a coach at the time to sort of help evaluate that. But it's a little bit of a project to be able to read between the lines of the feedback, because the feedback is also coming from an emotional.
True. And they're given the opportunity to be like, what do you not like about this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of things. So in my case, I was reading all of this feedback that as I read the individual feedback, I would push back against it, or I disagreed with facts or things that were included, or didn't agree with the perspective at all. But if I step back to look at all of the information as a whole, what I observed and what I worked with my coach on recognizing was that I was not maintaining relationships with people that were outside of my immediate work environment. So I had really great relationships with people that I would work with day to day on solving problems. But I had a lot of relationships that were at other sites, or I only had one interaction with a month, maybe, or often it was only email. And so I just wasn't taking additional time out of my workday to invest building and maintaining these relationships, which in the position that I had, that was very important, because that influenced resources that I would get, perceptions that were important to influence because of where they were in the leadership structure. And long story there, to the point that feedback, if you were to ask for your team for feedback, isn't on its own going to tell you. They're not going to just be able to say, here is your blind spot. You have to look through to see what the pattern of problems are that you're having with this array of perspectives, and try to tease out what it is that you want to work on. Or if you have somebody that's a coach that can help do that. But that's basically what the coach that I worked with did. They did a series of interviews with everybody around me.
Jeez Louise, this is intense.
It was super intense. But like we've been talking about,
hard things.
Growth is very hard. Change management is very hard. It's emotionally difficult, intellectually difficult. Just hearing it, first off. But then to go in and change behavior patterns that are often deeply emotional, kind of reactionary, amygdala level.
Yeah. You have to
behavior patterns.
Act contrary to yourself. Be like, this is what I would normally do now. I need to do something totally different than this.
Right. And often it's in scenarios where you're in a reactive, triggered state, for lack of a better word. It's like those are the moments where you have to interrupt when you're at your worst. Figuring out how to interrupt and change the behavior is brutally hard.
Yeah. So all that to say, knees out when you squat. Well, like you said, like there's growth from hard things.
Yeah.
If you kind of stick with it, or you can just walk away from it and be like, no, thanks. I don't want to do that. That Adam Grant interview, he also mentioned a study in which people found if you only do the things that you really, really, really like, doing the things that you don't like become more awful.
Oh,
so it's worth enduring the things that you don't love doing, the voluntary hardship things.
Right.
And it seems to actually have importance to making the things that you love even shinier and more wonderful. And it's worth kind of enduring certain things, like making trade-offs to train, to enduring that discomfort, to like training. You become vulnerable because you go into it, like you sign up for a coach, you're first getting into it, you've been inundated with visions of what it could be like and what it has been like for other people. And then when you're on your own journey, you're potentially all of a sudden comparing yourself to that. And that's being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And from that comes like an ability to appreciate yourself, an ability to learn, and an ability to be open-minded. But you have to kind of move through those states of being vulnerable. And working with a coach who's just going to help you point yourself in the right direction, but also tell you what you're doing wrong, which is like you were saying a few minutes ago. That can be a tough thing to hear when you're trying so hard to do it right.
Right.
You're trying so hard and giving it everything, and it's not going to be perfect. And that's okay. Yeah. Anyway, I'm excited to go work out today. Well, hopefully you took away a couple nuggets from this somehow. And I really appreciate you listening, and that you also appreciate doing things that challenge you and make you grow. I think that's what really brings our company together, honestly, is we're always like facing a new challenge and figuring out how to be different than we were before. If you would be so kind as to give us a review, we would really appreciate that. Give us a share, and we'll see you next week on Barbell Logic. Thanks, Andrew.
Bye-bye.